Happy New Year. Happy 2021. The world is still on fire and we're still in lockdown.
Abbiamo, abbiamo, abbiamo.
Yeah, happy new year slash happy same year because literally it just feels like an extension of the last year. And I feel like every new year you're supposed to be so energized and like refreshed and like happy to like be in a new year, blah, blah. I'm tired. I'm like,
Yeah, I don't have the patience. Like, I was expecting to come back after the holidays and feel some sort of like reset or refresh. And it's like you said, like, I literally feel like it's been an extension of 2020. I feel like
yeah,
January is now part of the calendar year for the year before, and
I
2020
know.
ended.
No, exactly. That's exactly how I feel. Like I had the break from work. Which truly like I took a break from everything. Like we took a break from the podcast, I took a break from work. I seriously took a break from like doing anything. Like I slept for like 10 to 12 hours a night because I was so tired every day.
Yep.
Um and just like physically and mentally exhausted. Like so tired, like could not even deal. Um and when we can, like I think that like kind of is like the signal to your brain that's like, oh, a break before we restart. And it's like you're supposed to take the time to like come back renewed and refreshed and re-energized. I literally didn't. Like I started everything like came back to normal. It was like Jan 1st, Jan whenever we went back. And I was like, I'm so tired. I would like to extend my break. Thank you and goodbye. Peace out.
I just completely blanked.
Bye.
I went to say something and I was like,
Yeah, because it's literally like, what's there to say except like true? That's like how I also feel.
yeah.
I go to do something and then my brain's like, no. And I'm like, this wasn't like an option. It's like a mandatory thing we have to do. And my brain's like, blank.
Yeah, seriously. I know we've talked about it before, but when it came time to go back to work or just any day-to-day routine, I was so anxious. I
Yeah.
didn't want to do anything and
No.
I couldn't figure out what it was exactly or pinpoint what it was that was making me so anxious, but I just feel like this never-ending exhaustion
Yes,
of
exactly. Exactly.
the state of the world. And then 1 week into the new year,
There was more.
there was more. There was that
Garbage.
riot on the Capitol in the US. And
Yeah.
I feel like since then it's just been this like I've gotten into doom scrolling, which is not really something to brag about, but I've started to get into it. And it just like you become so tethered to your phone, even more so than
Yeah.
you were before.
Yeah.
But I just like can't
You can't
unattach
stop.
my detach myself from the news.
No, I know. And I think too, like something I really, 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 really want to try hard to do is um not be on my phone the minute that I wake up. But it's so
Yeah.
hard because it's like your alarm is on your phone and then it's right there and then you like it's just so hard for me. But with that, it's also very, very, very difficult to just like put what's happening in the world aside, which obviously is a privilege in and of itself that it's something that you can like choose to disconnect from. But I really find myself being completely unable to do so. Like it's on your phone, it's like on it's all that's on TV, it's all that's on any sort of internet, anything. And it's very hard and that's why it feels like it's just like 2021 is just an extension of 2020 because it's very hard to like take a break
Mhm.
from feeling from like this feeling of like doomsday. Like it's funny that that you call it like doom scrolling, but like that is how it feels. Like it feels like every day is like you're like bracing yourself. You're like, oh, like what's gonna happen? Like what am I
Yeah.
like? and it's so tiring, it's so exhausting, and it's very, very difficult to disconnect from, because on one hand you're like, no, I need a break, I don't want to know, but on the other hand you're like, what the hell is going on? Like, I need to
Yeah.
know what the hell is going on.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. It's like, I need to know what's happening. And then it's also a sense of like, this is the only way that I can stay in the know and in the loop. Otherwise, I'm helpless because I'm so far removed from the situation, in the
Yeah.
sense that like geographically we're
Yeah.
in Canada and this is happening in the States.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before, this is something that so directly impacts us
Yeah.
because we are so similar to the States, but also we're so close to them. And
Yeah.
you just feel so helpless. Like, there's nothing that you can do. It's not like you can dial up your representative and be like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
Like, who that just like does not exist. Who is my Canadian ambassador to the representative of the United States? Like, do I
Yeah.
call them? Like, what's going on? And so you develop this like attachment and dependency on the news because that's your only way of staying connected. But I'm trying to disconnect. Like,
Exactly.
after the last coming up on a year of just like being connected through a screen, I don't want it. Like, I don't want to be on a screen. If I can limit it in any way I can, but I just like, it's the sense of dependency that I can't let go of.
No, totally. I think it's like this sense of dependency that you can't let go of. And it's also, it's like part of you doesn't want to let go. I know that may not like sound like it makes any sense, but at least the way I see it, it's like it feels like you're missing something, like this fear of missing out, like that's what it is. But it's not like something, it's not the fear of missing out on something fun, it's like the fear of missing out on like what is the next thing that's going to happen, because I just like, it's like I said, like you're constantly bracing yourself for what the next thing is, and it's just very tiring. And you're right, like coming up on a year of this whole new world that we live in, that's like, being connected and like learning to be connected in a very different way, takes a toll, because the way to like disconnect would be to get away from your phone, but it's actually the only way to connect,
Yeah.
because you can't see people like in real life.
Right.
So it's tough.
Yeah, it's like a catch-22.
Yeah. And I remember like when we were recording our episode about before we went on break in December, about it being the end of the year and kind of just being very tired, like this is almost like a part two. It's like, oh, like, okay, you took your break, like how was it? And at least for me, I'm coming back being like, yeah, I took my break, and like I don't feel amazing like having taken it. Like I still feel very much,
In need of a break.
yeah, like in need of like a mental break, and kind of in need of sort of distancing, but like from what? Because you can't like distance yourself from the world, like from the world, or like the
Yeah.
literal state of the world. And so it's really, really difficult, because yeah, like that's what I need a break from, and obviously I can't take a break from that.
Yeah.
So
I just need to better compartmentalize my life. Like, whether
yeah.
that's creating a healthier work-life balance or walking away from a screen, if it's like my phone or the TV or even my laptop, like
Yeah.
I feel like that's the type of break I need. I need everything just feels so meshed together, and I need
Yeah.
it to not be, even though I know that's obviously not really something that's possible in this
Day and age.
day and age. But yeah, I just need everything to be a little more separate. Like, that's how I used to function before, and it's been kind of hard to have everything all together in one. Like, even just in my house, like everybody is in one space. Even if you are in your own space or you're in your room, it still feels like everybody's in your space. And so I've
Yeah.
been trying to really hold myself accountable when I'm not doing a good job at creating those boundaries for myself. So, for example, uh, I we have this like little space outside of my room,
Yeah.
which is kind of like a makeshift office, but nobody used to use, and it was a place where we would just like honestly just throw our shit, and it was just
Yeah.
like another like storage area. But I turned it into a little office for work,
Which is so
and
cute.
which is and yeah, and it's actually made the world of a difference. Like that little change of where I work during the day has given me my room back and has
Yeah,
given me that space to breathe and
totally.
to have for myself.
Totally. I feel like that's such a big thing of like moving where you work makes such a big difference because also I find sometimes I get sick of working at my desk.
Yeah.
And then I move like downstairs and I guess like my mom, works in her space. My dad still goes to work and my sister's usually, I mean, except for the last little bit, usually has been going to school the past year,
Right.
the past school year anyways. And so I get like space downstairs to kind of work. But no, it's really hard. I think, there's something we talked about before, but it's really hard to compartmentalize like your brain when all of your physical spaces are kind of like meshed into one
Yeah.
and you don't really get the kind of opportunity to be like, this is like my work hat because I'm at work. This is my personal hat because I'm like at home. This is my like relaxing hat because I'm in my bed. And
Yeah.
it's really hard too because some days like I find myself I've worked in bed where like I'll be working in bed and um I really, really try not to do it and I hate doing it. But like some days it just happens. Like it just happens where you're sitting on your bed and you're working. It really messes up like your brain connection because like you're not supposed to work in bed. But then at the same time, when you're working like in your room, it's so hard to create that like distinction.
Yep.
It's also hard to like remain like focused and like productive because everything kind of just like meshes into one.
Yeah. I don't know if you find this, but I especially hate like when I'm on my period and I really just don't feel good that day. I'll automatically like turn
Yeah.
to my bed
Yeah.
and I'll
Exactly.
just like cradle myself in this like
Yeah.
fetal position
Yeah.
and be working. And it doesn't do anybody any favors.
And you don't even feel better. Like I think that's the thing. It's like you do it because you're like, oh, it'll be easier for me if I'm just like like in a comfortable position. But actually, you're like, this isn't helping me. But it's like so hard to get out of it. But you're like, this isn't helping me.
Yeah.
No, I know exactly how you feel.
I've been having a hard time coming to the like not like realization, but just it really sinking in that it's likely that we won't be out of the situation that we're in until next year. So like
Yeah.
another year of this shit.
Which will
And
technically be 2 years of it in total.
yeah, and it just sits like it sits heavy on my chest. Like
Yeah.
even thinking about it now, I can feel my heart start beating. Obviously, like I say this with a grain of salt in the sense that I'm so grateful to be working. I'm so grateful to be able to work from home. Like it is an extreme privilege to have those two things in a year like the one
Like
we
this.
just had
Yeah.
slash
Are
are
having.
continuing to have. But it has been very challenging and it requires such a sense of like willpower and determination to keep going. And I feel like I'm almost exhausted myself of those things.
No, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. I feel like obviously there's like very many things that like we have to be grateful for and I'm saying that not to say like, oh, this year taught everybody so many things, be grateful for blah blah blah, but I literally mean because the last year has taken away so many things from literally everybody worldwide that it's very humbling to be in the position that we are right now and like have the things that we do in our life. But you're right, I think it takes such a strong mental power and such strong mental health to constantly show up, literally just show up every day. And I think that's what towards the end of last year I was really sort of feeling depleted of. Like I didn't have the mental or emotional energy to sort of show up, but like what does that mean, because you have to. And what a selfish thing to be like, I can't do that right now. But I don't know, I think that's sort of how I've continued to feel into this year.
Mhm.
And I feel really bad because like I can feel myself sort of being cranky or like irritable.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily towards anybody or anything. It's just how I feel because I feel very tired all the time. And it's
Mhm.
really I think in just the corporate world in general, like sure, there's like an attempt to sort of move to a more empathetic, sympathetic, understanding culture, but at the end of the day, like the core functioning model of the corporate world is that like it's always business as usual, and you just have to keep going, and you just like push through, and you kind of just focus on that and like the business of it all. And I think that I'm having a really hard time with that because, you know, I think while people are making an effort, and while companies and corporate culture in general, in at least in some areas, are like making an effort to be more to focus on like the more human aspect of it, at the end of the day, it's like so deeply ingrained in literally their business model, and like it's very hard to actually change it, that it becomes very tokenistic, if that makes sense, which just makes it harder because you're like, oh yeah, like I'm like here to talk about it, but not because you're not trying to go that deep. Like, I don't know. Does that make sense? I feel like I went on a bit of a rant.
No, I know what you mean. Companies, corporations, and the like capitalistic, this sounds so intense, business model
Like
always
literally capitalism.
always runs on self, like the self-interest of the corporation and
Yeah.
like increased profits. And
Yeah.
so
And increased productivity, just like despite being like, but where's that increased productivity coming from? Like,
yeah,
question marks
exactly.
all around.
Yeah. So no, I know what you mean. It's like that is almost set in stone no matter what the hell is happening in the world.
Exactly.
The world
Exactly.
could literally be on fire like it is right now, and it would be
Exactly.
like, all right, well,
Yeah.
keep like business as usual,
Yeah.
like no change
Exactly.
on our end. But then
Exactly.
like on that idea of like it becoming tokenized, you're so right, because you feel everybody could be going through it and the same thing, but nobody would know. Like
No, exactly.
there's a sense of disconnect, ironically because we're like connected 24/7 now, but there is a sense
Yeah.
of disconnect. And I even feel in myself, like not in other aspects of my life as well, I feel myself almost just like retracting. Like I don't
Yeah.
even know if like
Like
retracting.
retreat within yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Like I am like distancing away from whatever it is I'm doing, and just like a, like a turtle, you know, like going back into its shell.
Yep.
So it's like it's such a wild time. And it's funny because I know that when we were planning our episodes and we were talking about January, it was like, okay, well, the theme's going to be how we can set ourselves up for success. And this episode was actually going to be about managing your money and managing your finances. And we got into 2021 and we spoke on the phone for 3 hours.
Yeah,
And just
literally.
like our conversation was a mix of like saying nothing, but also saying everything.
Yeah.
And that was just like the state of our minds. Like,
Yeah.
I think we were just really overwhelmed that we had nothing to say, but we just wanted to hang out. But we were also really overwhelmed that we had so much to say.
To like literally get
to
off
get
of
out.
your chest. Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. This idea of like retreating, because I find myself doing that a lot, and I don't mean to, but it's like I said, like I find that I really, really, really don't have the mental energy, emotional capacity to like not be there for people. I don't think that's what I mean, but I don't know. I think a big thing that I learned in 2020 was to like set better boundaries with people.
Yeah. And yourself too.
And yourself too, exactly. And like I think when you do something that you know you have to do, or that you need to do, and it's hard, you kind of hope that when you do it you feel a sense of like, oh, like good, like I did it and it was hard, but I did it and I feel good about it. But actually you don't feel good. Like you literally feel like, especially something like setting a boundary, or relearning like how to be, or whether it's with yourself or with other people, it doesn't always feel good right away. And it like it doesn't, you feel like many different emotions of like guilt or like sadness or like whatever. And I think my response to that has been retreating, because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, like this doesn't actually feel good. Like I know I have to do it, so I'm doing it, but it doesn't feel good. So I'm just going to take a step back in like inward into myself. And yeah, like, like I've had these conversations with people, and it's really nice because they'll kind of come back to me and be like, I'm sorry if like they'll almost like apologize, and you feel so bad because you're like, no, like I don't want you to apologize for like wanting me to be there for you or like whatever, but it's very difficult to find energy and have that mental willpower.
Yeah.
Am I saying this weirdly? Whatever.
No.
Mental willpower to like just compartmentalize it
To
all.
show up.
Yeah, to show up. Baseline, show up.
Yeah.
And then it's very hard when your job or whatever expects you to show up the exact same way and be the exact same and like be like 100%. And you're like, the world is literally ending. Like, I don't know if you know, but the world has literally come to a screeching halt.
I know. Like
here's this unimportant business fact that you're looking for.
I saw this tweet and I feel like it really just like put into words how I was feeling, but it was like this increased steadily for the last 4 years. And that's so true. Like I just feel like the last 4 years, like I feel like we're on a show where the season finale is now.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're like crescendoing to the like absolute climax. And I'm just waiting.
We're in the Truman Show.
I am waiting for the freaking drop. Like I'm done.
But that's exactly what it is, right? Like you're like holding your breath. Like you're like how do I say this? Like you're literally like waiting with bated breath for like what the end will be. But like there's no end in sight. And I think that's like what is so like frustrating or like hard or like whatever is that like there is no end in sight. Like you're right. It's like crescendoing up, but to like what? And I think a lot of like there was a lot of like hope, or I don't know what the word is, but like pinned on 2021.
Yeah.
And this is what I was saying in like the last episode. It's like everyone's like 2021, like 2021. And I'm like, what do you think is going to happen on Jan 1st, 2021? Like it's just going to be an extension. And I realize that that's like a very pessimistic thing. And I'm not usually a very pessimistic person, but I think sometimes you really have to like temper your expectations or taper your expectations, whatever the word is. Like you really have to like be like, yeah, but everything is still going to exist. Like this year can certainly like you can hope for better things and you can like make plans for better things, but to add pressure and to take away pressure, all it really is a calendar date change.
Yeah.
By which I like, and to add pressure, I mean like it adds pressure because it's like, yeah, and it's a new year. And so new beginnings and new things and and it adds all this pressure, but it takes away pressure because it's like, yeah, but at the end of the day, like it's just a date change. So it's not like a hard reset on anything.
Yeah.
Which is hard to like wrap your brain around because typically that's what a new year means. It means like a refresh or a reset on, whatever.
I remember New Year's Day. I'll start with New Year's Eve. I was extremely anxious New Year's Eve.
Yeah, me too.
I did not like New Year's Eve to begin with. I thought it was I always thought it was overrated, but especially this year, I was just like, I want to see this fucking year leave. Like I want to watch the clock as it hits 12:00 a.m.
Yeah.
Jan 1st. I want to see it. And I remember my family just sitting by the TV watching the like, I don't know, like the countdown somewhere. Yeah. And we all, I looked around and we had just like a straight face, like no emotion whatsoever. Just like, let's fucking go. Let's get this show on the road and let's move on.
Yeah.
And I remember waking up the next day feeling the same thing. Like, yeah, it's a new year, but it's also just another day. And we're still in the same situation. And so it's not going to make sense for me to jump into this and be like, new year, new me.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I don't even think like something as simple as like a New Year's resolution. I was like, this isn't something that serves me or the time of the time of this world right now. So
Mm.
it really is like taking things day by day. And I think one of the biggest lessons that I learned last year was not to apologize for how you feel
Yeah. Yeah.
and not to like overthink how you feel either. Just give yourself space. Like I think that's the biggest thing. Like
Yeah.
in a time where your physical space is limited, give yourself the mental space to feel how you feel and then move on, or deal with it in the way that you feel is best for yourself.
Yeah, totally. I think I think one of the things that I'm really trying to do in like feeling your feelings is also like naming it. I know that sounds kind of silly, but I think oftentimes you like, at least the way that I work, I'm just like, oh, I'm anxious and I'm anxious and da 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 da, and like everything is like going on in my mind at like whatever speed. And I'm, instead of doing that, what I'm really, really trying to do in an attempt to give myself the space to like feel and be whatever is be like, oh, the feeling I'm feeling is anxiety. Like,
Yeah.
and in doing that, you don't like co-opt the emotion. That may not make much sense, but what I mean by that is you give yourself distance between you and the emotion. So like, you are not anxiety. Anxiety is an emotion that you feel, but it's not who and what you are. I don't know if that makes sense, but it just
Yeah.
like, it puts it in a different mind frame because you literally get distance from your emotion. You're like, okay, yeah, anxiety is an emotion that I feel, but it's not what I am comprised of. So it doesn't have to take over my like mind or my brain space or like my life. And I think
Yeah.
it's something that you're right. When your physical space is so limited, I kind of feel like my mental space is also limited, which
Mhm.
obviously it isn't, but it feels like it is. And so it's a way to kind of be like, okay, it's not taking up the entire space. It's just like, it's in the corner and that's anxiety, but
Yeah.
I'm still over here and I see it and it's like in the room, but it's not the room, if that makes
It's
sense.
no, it makes total sense. Actually, what you just explained is what that book, the one that I was reading, The Power of Now.
Oh, yeah.
So
I
I
feel
read
like we
this
should like
book and
link that.
I had like an epiphany. Like I woke up and was like, I'm enlightened now. I know. I understand. But actually that's exactly what it is. Like that's the premise of the book. It's this idea of separating emotion from thought and
Yeah.
and understanding how your mind works and how it festers things like anxiety into something that is just like all consuming, and how to stop it from doing so.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's just like, there's obviously a lot of hope for this upcoming year.
Yeah.
I mean, well, we're in the year, but like, so for the current year, there's a lot of like, there is a lot of like new energy, new hopes, new dreams, new goals, new whatever that you want an upcoming year to bring. And I think it's really, really, really good to have that, because at the same time where you recognize that this year may just be an extension of the year prior,
Mhm.
it's also good to like have something to look forward to, like, and you
Yeah.
know, like have things that like make you feel good, and if that's setting new goals and if that's whatever it is, like I think that's why New Year's is so big, because it makes people feel like, oh, like I can let go of a lot of stuff and I can like restart whatever.
Yeah.
And that's a really good and positive feeling. So if that's what this year is for you, then do that. And maybe just keep in mind that like, it's okay if it's like a middle ground. It's okay if it's not as good as you like expect this year to be, but it will at least be a little bit better and easier than the year prior. At least that's like the hope. But you land somewhere in the middle, and that's hopefully a better place than where you were before.